Are you planning an upcoming business meeting to China? Well, then you should be aware of the many differences in business communication between the practices that we conduct here in the United States and there in China. American business people wishing to take advantage of the increasing China consumer buying power must have an understanding of Chinese cultural attributes and to be able to successfully communicate. You must be able to communicate appropriately, look the part, take notice to acknowledge the Chinese customs. First impressions are really important to the Chinese. You should know that all introductions are formal, and you should use the formal title of the person that you are introducing. This is because rank is really important to the Chinese, and it shows a sign of respect if you go out of your way to introduce them by rank. Dress should be appropriate to the occasion. If it's business casual, it needs to be conservative, casual, but also look very neat, pressed, and clean. If it's going to be business professional, then business suits should be clean, dark in color, and tailored to fit. Women should always be conservative in their clothing because women who wear revealing clothing, it can be seen as a sign of disrespect to Chinese men. English is the official spoken language of business communications between Americans and between the United States and the Chinese. This is because back in 1972, following President Nixon's visit to China, there was a growth between the United States and China, between their business communications and their business practices, and the Chinese decided that it was important to teach all of their children how to speak to speak English, so they even hired English teachers to come in and teach their students the 4 basic English skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Greetings and gestures are really important to the Chinese. Bowing is the most formal greeting that you can give to somebody. When you greet somebody, it should be slow in motion, and the younger person or the less superior person should bow lower as a further sign of respect. Handshakes are becoming more appropriate, but you should only shake one's hand if the Chinese offer their hand to you first. And if so, you may shake their hand with a slight bow, and that shows respect. And handshakes are becoming more and more appropriate these days and more common. Nodding of the head is still the most common gesture that the Chinese use. And this is because it's traced back to an old tradition in Chinese history. Since the Chinese language in ancient times was written on a scroll, the Chinese would have to read from up, down, and it created that nodding motion. And many people carry on that motion today. But nodding to the Chinese could indicate many things, either from approval, greeting, understanding, or just listening. It's important to know that waving and big and ambiguous gestures and excessive facial expressions is kind of frowned upon by the Chinese. They're simpler people, and they don't require so much expression, I should say. And when you're going to point to something, never point with a finger. Always point with an extended palm. That is more respectful. Formalities. The most important, highest titled person in your company should lead the business meeting. This is because rank is important to the Chinese, and your most senior person should lead with offering invitation to a less superior employee, offering that invitation to give him the opportunity to offer supplemental information to contribute to the business meeting. The Chinese also keep an intimate distance when speaking between 18 inches, which is a little bit odd for America because we're used to keeping that 18 to 2 feet distance. So when going to China to do business, you should try to get out of your comfort zone and practice getting a little bit closer. Seating rules should also be strictly observed during both business and dinner parties. The most senior person or most important person at the meeting or dinner party should be seated at the head of the table with the most important person from the Chinese gathering. In concluding, you have to remember that Confucianism plays a really big role with the Chinese, and this has caused them to be reserved, well-mannered, and great hosts. They take pride in everything that they do, and it would be a great honor to experience the Chinese culture. And when you go, remember to be respectful, articulate, clean, neat, and try to avoid any taboo gestures.